Okay, thanks for coming, folks. More people rolling in. More people were signed up. This first part is the rule book. I am going to go through the overview as a starting point. I know at a certain level that just means this has got a lot of stuff. This answers a lot of questions, but feel free to throw your hand up and ask questions along the way. We're using the IFAF rule book. Last year and every year previous, we used the Football Canada rule book. The Football Canada rule book becomes more like the IFAF rule book every year. The IFAF rule book does not come closer to the Football Canada rule book. They don't care about the Football Canada rule book. The IFAF rule book is okay. A gross oversimplification. You can tell it's not written by only Great Britain. When you read it, you can tell it's written by Germans, French, a variety of people. It just doesn't quite have that sort of feel sometimes in terms of really good English. I made changes to it and they were accepted. They kept using the word principle instead of like, here's a principle and then there's different aspects of it. They just kept saying principle instead of even sub-principle. So I was like, I couldn't believe I was on an email list with them and I said, well, and they put all the changes in. So I feel I was able to contribute to the IFAF rulebook. It was kind of exciting. What I like about the IFAF rulebook, it is more battle tested than the Football Canada rulebook, and by that I mean Canadian Flag Football Championships are evolving to be better and better, but the IFAF Flag Football rulebook has been battle tested with World Championships since the 90s, and when you have World Championships in countries, you are going to ask questions and you are going to demand things after because of this or that. And hence it has an interpretation section for the back half. It's just a more established rulebook because there's been simply more people poking around in it repeatedly because of World Championships, and that only is going to increase with the Olympics. So another example, I mentioned Football Canada becomes more like the IFAF. Just this year, Football Canada allowed snaps to not have to pass through the center's leg to be an acceptable snap. Last year, snaps had to go through the legs for Football Canada. IFAF snaps through the legs or side snaps where you're facing forward. All right, so that's Football Canada is allowing that this year. All right, so there's an example of Football Canada becoming more IFAF-like.
Does the center have to face forward?
No, the ball has to be sort of longitudinal. You can't have the ball sort of sideways. I'm not sure who would really object to that, but they talk about it in the rule book being longitudinal, and they talk about having a stance, but no, nothing, I don't believe there's anything about which way the center has to be. The centering action has to be one continuous action. You can't pick it up and wave it around. Even though, the rusher could rush, I believe you still can't do that. You have to make a direct, quick action. And that's in the rule book, and I wouldn't be, I don't think I mentioned that in the overview. But yeah, so no real restrictions that way, from what I can tell. Football sizes, tackle has very established football sizes. We've gone one size below where possible. Tackle, tyke, K2. I think Pee-wee's next. Pee-wee, TDJ. Mosquito, TDY. Bantam, senior. All right, at that point, you're in a senior ball. Okay? Not the case. We're one behind. No, you can't go one behind a Pee-wee at tyke, so it's K2. But I'll say OU10, K2, OU12, K2 or larger. We're trying to get more kids trying quarterback. That hand size can be a real challenge for a kid. You want to have your tackle quarterback playing and they want to use the regulation size, no problem. I will say the Wilson balls are engineered that I can throw from K2 up to senior with no change in my throwing action, no change in the field. So I believe they're engineered well that way, at least the Wilsons. And I can say that about all the balls. It's not a big deal for a quarterback. All right, so the football sizes are there. Uniforms. We had our best year for not having to tell teams about wearing pockets. last year, maybe 2 occasions. Teams had a player or two that wore pockets. Keep on with that. We did not let them play with pockets. We did not allow them to take them up. All right? It's just the more we stick strong on that, the more it becomes less and less of an issue. It's a safety issue. Jewelry, I think you've all seen that enough perhaps in games with refs deciding on jewelry. With all the different shapes and everything and positions, they do tell you to cover it up often, but I think that's pretty well. We've gone through everything on flags of a different color. The clubs have already taken care of that for you by making sure there's no similarity. Bell is blue and gold. You can't use blue or gold for your flags. All right, we use red. All right, so you have a complete contrast to your uniform in every way. It mentions flag guarding here. When a player has a jersey that is improperly tucked into the shorts, whether the situation developed before or during the play, and possesses the ball, then this situation will be treated as flag guarding situation. Now I've changed this a little bit, and I keep having to make slight differences. The most current version will always be on NCAFA.ca. Click on coaching resources. This is slightly older. I believe I've made a change, which is okay. I didn't want to call it flag guarding because that would involve a 5-yard penalty, but referees will decide whether to blow the play dead because your uniform isn't on. It wouldn't be a penalty. The ref may say, I wait till someone gets close, but it's treated as an infraction. But if we dealt with it as an infraction before the play started, we would be stopping the play all the time for kids having a jersey hanging out. And it would just be a constant wear your uniform properly. And so we just wait for it to become a factor. And then we will blow it. There's a little room for discretion on how the ref will do it. You're catching a long bomb, there's no one around you, they may just let it go. The other extreme, you are not wearing your uniform properly. Why would I do this? This person has got a few touchdowns. I've told this person repeatedly, every time you line up, you got to check the uniform. I've warned him 3 or 4 times. Finally, I've had enough. When you catch the ball, I'm blowing it dead. Those are the ranges of what you might expect a ref to do. I wish I could tell you all the refs are going to do it exactly the same. That is not happening. All right. Mouth guards are mandatory. We've seen no problem there. That's all in the check. All in check. I think the refs did a great job of checking every game for that. So all good. So that stuff's relatively straightforward. Timing. I will tell you that not enough. You're free to do what you want, but not enough coaches utilize the timeouts to extend the play a little bit. Call a timeout if you'd like to get a little more playing time. All right, that'll get you an extra play or 2 by using your timeouts. 2 per half. This year there is going to be a little bit of a difference. We expect refs to stop the clock, at least briefly, if not till the play snaps, by having a 2-minute warning. How well the refs implement this change, and I'm not down on the refs, right? But there can be variances. You know, you can have 10 do it the same way and then 1 or 2 do it different. You're going, what's going on? All right, so try and, as always, you'll see today, try and find an opportune time. I believe that you're supposed to have a 2-minute warning with a clock stop. Just want to let you know that's what I've been seeing, so try and talk to them because they're learning. While they often know the rules better, much better on average than coaches, that doesn't mean they're perfect. Coin toss. Coin toss is interesting. If having the wind in the second half is important to you, it is almost better to lose the coin toss because, I know we should do a coin toss. Do I have 1 or 2 fingers behind my back? 2. You have won the toss. Would you like the ball in the first half or the second half? Wait, this is different from almost every other coin toss. Every other coin toss, would you like to defer or choose right now? Defer. Then, go to you. You can choose an end or you can choose the ball. What would you like? He'd like that end. Would you like to kick off or receive? So that's tackle. Let's go back to, you won the toss. Would you like the ball in the first half or the second half? Second half. Which end would you like the ball in the first half? And then there's an automatic switch. Okay? Do you see it if choosing end and having win in the second half is more important? You are better to lose. Not that you're going to go, I'm going to go heads, or whatever, but it will not seem like a regular coin toss because you almost might feel you've lost the toss when you win it, in the sense of what the choices are. Because you're each going to get the ball. Now, some people really like that ball in the second half to start. They feel if it was tied now, they get to be up and then tied. But for many people, having the wind in the second half might be more important than anything. All right, so that's why it's just a bit of a strange coin toss. All right. Scoring, don't think there's any problem there, other than interception return on any convert is 2 points. You're going for one. You intercept it, run it back, 2 points. All right, you're going for two, he intercepts it, goes back, 2 points. One thing that is interesting I've never seen before, and I don't even know if they have a rule for it in tackle football. You're going for a convert, you run back 50 yards, you get sacked in that end zone. It is 1 point, not a 2 point safety. I don't even know if the CFL or the CIU has a rule for what happens if a quarterback runs back 110 yards on a convert and gets sacked in their end zone. I don't know what the point play would be. So that is new stuff right there. So anyways, everyone get what I mean by that? Getting tackled in your own end zone is a safety. Yeah. But it's only half of 2 points.
Impossible.
Well, no, you could.
You could.
Well, the reason is, so here's, can anyone think of a reason why you might want to give up a safety in flag football and run back 50, 45 yards? Run the clock, right? In that case, you might want to, I could see people running around to run the clock. That is more doable. I don't think the clock runs on a convert in that football game. So in that sense, there'd be no incentive to. Okay, anyways, I found that humorous. 25 seconds to put in a play after teams have regrouped in a reasonable amount of time. A ref shouldn't start the clock until they're somewhat close. I will start a clock as a ref if I feel a person's dawdling, but you try to generally say, that time started. In general, and not all refs do this as well, in general, there should be a whistle before you can start a play. Often the whistle occurs. Why do the refs whistle in? They whistle in because they've looked at the other ref. Teams are ready for another play. Not teams. If a team was ready, I'm ready. It's all about whistling it in because the refs are ready for a play. If there need to be a ball, beanbags put down and get the refs into each of their positions, the ref will whistle. Often you won't notice they've blown a whistle that indicates you're ready to make a play if you want to. Where this is important, though, is when a team's trying to run hurry up. You want to get the ball swayed and blow so that you can run a play. So in this case, that clock will start. It doesn't necessarily start with the whistle, is what I'm trying to say. That whistle's saying if the team wants to run a play, they're good to go. I will tell you that I'm not sure at what level refs would really start being strict about the 25 seconds. So I wouldn't say it's an area of focus right now, especially at U10, in terms of getting teams to run off. I, as a ref, more experienced ref than some, would be pushing teams, especially as the game goes on, by just letting them know, come on, let's get that a little bit faster. And as the season goes on, I would try and be more positive about getting things in that play. But I can't say it's a focus, and each ref will be a little different because some will be saying, hey, come on, this is just, sort of closer to rec football, let's be easy on that part. So it'll be a little different for everybody. Okay, so that's the huddle. Coach on field, OU10, OU12, GU12, GU14, one coach on the field at a time. It's gone really well, but it is the number one thing that I have to deal with where one club's a little frustrated with another club. Now, the reason I say club is because we're trying to have it where you're upset there. You don't necessarily yell at them. You mention it to your club president. Your club president mentions it to his club president, and it goes that way. So we're not trying to be direct in terms of coach on coach. Having said that, last year everyone agreed that we can get the refs to do something and potentially throw a penalty after warnings. I can't say that any ref did, and I can tell you that especially the younger refs would probably feel pretty reluctant doing that. Has it caused games to be different? No, it's not that, but it is annoying. All right, here I am standing behind my quarterback. Look right, look right, look right, look right, look right. I got to tell you, first of all, it doesn't help the development of your quarterback. It's the exact opposite of what you want your quarterback to be doing. You want your quarterback learning to be an independent person, and I don't even think we start this.
You're not always in view.
Yeah, you're right. I stand too close to it. Thank you. I did start it. Yay! So it's the opposite of what you want your quarterback learning to be a little more independent. Hey, nothing wrong on the sidelines. I really think you need to look here or there. So that's the one thing. Look right, run, 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 run. You know, if you've done a handoff and the person could throw or run. But you can start to see that would be kind of annoying when you're playing a team and that coach is just basically helping their players make decisions on the field. Here's the problem. Half the time the person's half muttering and they're not really trying to. Come on, run, 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 run. They're enthusiastic. Do you know what I mean? So that's where it's a problem. All right? But we are trying to give you a privileged position out there to help them call plays and line up. Step back. Try and back. It's just not a good, did you ever see what I mean by it's not a good look? I'm not saying anyone's got any bad ulterior motives. You're up a few touchdowns and all you can hear now is this, look at this quarterback making all these great decisions. It just gets frustrating and annoying, when you're having to be on the other side of it. But remember, there's a solution. Jog off the field, and now you're a regular coach. All right? If you want to give those instructions in any other game, when you're on the sidelines, no one's going to say a thing about what you're saying. I will tell you that it's still not the best idea if your quarterback is just really relying on that, but it is a smaller field. We are closer to a basketball game of basketball instruction than we are a football game where it's nice. There's just such a distance, you know what I mean? You can mutter all you want. No one's hearing it. Right? So the other thing there is that try and remember that because the ref can hear you a lot more on a smaller field. All right? So you have to just be a little more aware of that. It's just not fun reffing, having this constant narration of the calls that you've missed. I've had to adjust. I'm the same as you coaching. I've had to adjust and really think about that. We're also in a new sport, which means we're all learning. We all know a chunk. What chunks do we know, and how does that all go together? While on the field, the offensive coach cannot run a no-huddle offense. These are guidelines. I'm not saying that every ref knows exactly. But we're not here covering back. If you're on the field, you're trying to help them run plays. Do you want to run a no-huddle offense? No problem. Go to the sidelines. On the ball. Do whatever you want from the sidelines. We're not saying you can't run a no-huddle offense. But don't do it where you're, running them around. The other thing I would say is give the other team a warning. Listen, coach, pretty soon I'm going to start running no-huddle. It just would be sportsmanlike here, especially depending on the age group. Just give them a moment to prep for. Hey, we don't have a call. This is our defense. You know what I mean? Because they got to back out and respond to the offense. Does that make sense? Right? QB ball in hand, start of an offensive play. Remember, you can switch between the quarterback having the ball or the center having the ball. If you want to run a play with the quarterback having the ball and then you want to run a play with the center snapping it, you can. Most teams at OU 12 and boys younger, GU 14 and girls younger, will start with a ball. Now, I'm going to show you how most teams do it, and it's not right. Ready, set, hut, and the play starts. Not that bad. Makes sense. It's just the defense has no real sense of when the ball play starts. How does a defense in every football game normally tell when the play starts? The ball moves. I will tell you, a lot of teams go offside because the rusher goes on huts instead of really watching the ball of the center. It's a coaching point for everybody to learn. You know, rusher, watch the ball. That's the start of the play. So, we're giving you the ball. That actually is a bit of a deterrent on one level, because if you wanted to do a rolling snap where the quarterback's running before they get the ball, you can't do that in this. Standing still, behind the center. It would be nice if you held the ball out. They could have their throwing grip, the ball can be down. You could have one hand. Set, hut. Now the defense knows when the play is starting. They know when the play is starting, they know when to move, when to react. All right, ball in hand, hold it out, be still, move the ball, the play starts. Ball in hand. Not, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. All right. General play, you know, NCAFA.ca, flag, coach resources, lots of things. Now, at some point, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in that folder. The operating procedures, hopefully, I mean, you're welcome to read it. It's about what goes on in flag. You know, when we try to have teams in. So it's all the operating procedures. Not saying you have to read it, although you're welcome to. Number 2, we'll start with rule books. Overview, and I put 2A, 2B, 2C or something, but overview and the rule book. You'll start seeing 7, 8, 9, referee penalty sheet. You'll see judgment or interpretations, main section, annotated. I've just broken up the 60-page rules into some different chunks. It's all the rule book. All those later ones are the rule book. And then you'll see IFAF, Football Canada, and NCAFA differences. All right, so that just tries to pick out what's different between the rule books or in years past. Okay, so that's all there. The reason I say that is one of the things I just wanted to mention in the general play. What did I want to tell you? Oh, no, but not yet. So, new this year, 4 downs, bigger field. Same width, 4 downs, 20-yard zones last year, 25-yard zones this year. Little differences. The no-run zone is 5 yards in both. When you were in the no-run zone last year in Football Canada, you stayed in it, whether you were out of it by penalty or out of it by a loss. You were considered. First down from the 4. No run zone. You lose 5 yards because of offside. First down from the 9. You're still considered in the no run zone. Little goofy because you're clearly not in the no run zone, but they wanted to promote passing, so they didn't want you taking a loss on purpose to now get out of the no run zone. Not true in IFAF. Now you're out of the no run zone, you're out of the no run zone. You don't stay in it in that sense. So just lots of these little differences.
I'm sorry, the field is 80 in total?
70.
70.
10, 25, 25, 10.
Okay, so you have to go 20 yards then to get the first down. 25.
Well, 20 in the first zone because you're on the 5. That's
Yeah.
right. And then the next time it's so 25 yard zones, but you're right. You start from the 5 every time on the first
Okay.
down. Yep, for sure. We'll talk about the blitzing rule in a moment, but we have blitzers and rushers. Blitzers and rushers. Let's go to blitzers and rushers. I'm going to jump down to, we've talked already about the snap not having to go through the legs. So if you're following on this page, I'm at the bottom of this page, defenders, blitzers, and rushers. Some of you were here yesterday, but most of you are newish, so this is good stuff going through this. It's hard to know exactly what we need on rules. So, we have beanbags for the line of scrimmage, and we have a beanbag for the blitzer. Funny enough, IFAF does not have a second beanbag at big tournaments because their fields are marked nicely. The ref will stand at 7 yards, and there's no beanbag. All right? For us, we have a tradition of a beanbag for the rush and where the rusher or blitzer right over top of the center. So a blitzer has to be lined up properly 7 yards off and raise their hand. Raise it early if you can, but as long as it's clearly raised a second or more before the snap, that's a good raise. That's a good ID. Okay? They get to rush in. Okay? And I want to come back to this, but this has consequences because if you are lined up 7 yards back without your hand raised, you're a rusher. There's one big extra right to a blitzer versus a rusher. The blitzer is guaranteed a path to cross the line of scrimmage to where a clear path, especially across the line of scrimmage, to where the quarterback catches the ball. The quarterback is the first person that catches the snap. They're guaranteed a clear path to where the quarterback caught the ball. So I'm lining up over the quarterback here. I run. There's a gap the offense has left you. He runs with the ball this way. I do not have the right to curve. I have the right of path to where he caught the ball, and then I can curve. But I only have a right to that path. Okay? Why is this different from touch? That quarterback cannot run past the line of scrimmage. If we had that rule in touch football, and they could set up a blocking line here, you could run easily for a first down because you could run in touch football. Flag, that person cannot run past the line of scrimmage. We guarantee you a path to where the quarterback caught the ball. That is it in flag football. Okay? Yep.
7 years line is marked. Did the ref mark that? The
7 yards behind on the defensive side. Yes, we will have that beanbag. Yeah, very important for us with the kids not knowing where 7 yards in the field not being marked clearly. So, the rusher does not have that guaranteed path, and you'll see, we'll talk later, that the next level of priority is the receiver's right to run a pattern. The receivers have a right to run a pattern. It is not as big a priority as the blitzer's path to where the quarterback caught the ball, which only seems so good. The rusher can rush and cross the line of scrimmage no matter what's going on, but they don't have that extra right. The reason I say that is because now you could have defenders lined up anywhere on the defensive side of the ball up to the nose of the ball. In American football, the ball is a neutral zone. I know the center's hand is in that neutral zone, but no one should be across the neutral zone of the football. Help out at this age group where it's going to be crunch time at the goal line, where you want to say, get up really close, and I understand, yeah, get up close, but think about 2 footballs. Do you know what I mean? Don't make it so close. You know, if this was the tip of the football, coach them to, a little bit of a lean now brings you in, but teach them to be back a little bit. We don't need right now, you know what I mean? Especially at 10 and 12. Don't go crazy on that. I know you're gonna, not so much you want to go crazy, but I know around the goal lines, move up. Totally true, move up. You don't have to give a yard. Big difference, Football Canada, IFAF. But I'm gonna be telling refs, don't be afraid to move them back 6 inches. Move back, defense, move back, and that may be 6 inches more than you think is what the rules are saying. You see what I mean? I just don't think we need that right now. Right? So, the only people that can cross the line of scrimmage legally are rushers and blitzers who line up 7 yards. But the moment the ball is handed off, or fake handed off, we'll come back to what a fake is, or lateral, anyone can cross the line of scrimmage at any time. Ball's thrown forward. You may say, what? Wouldn't that cross the line of scrimmage? You could throw a forward pass that doesn't cross the line of scrimmage. you can go across. The moment the ball is handed off, fake handed off, lateral, throw-in, anyone can go anywhere on the football field. Okay? So with that, what did I want to say about that? Oh, I'm forgetting that part too. That can cross anywhere, blitzers, defenders, rushers. Yeah, I think we're okay on that. So that's what is a fake? This can get technical. I got Football Canada to write that a fake handoff by Football Canada is a two-way street. You need a quarterback action and you need a running back action. IFAF has only one distinction for a fake. And we're into the weeds here on what refs will call a fake too. IFAF says there only has to be an action by the quarterback. So I could run by a quarterback without looking like I'm going to take a handoff. I'm the running back. There's the quarterback handing it to me, and I do this. It could still be a fake. Because if I'm the quarterback and I do this, that is a fake. A quarterback can't do this to no one, though. I mean, if a quarterback just does this, that's not a fake. There has to be someone in the vicinity who could take it. How well that's going to be ref, I wish I could tell you. But all IFAF specifically says a fake is a quarterback action simulating a handoff. It makes no mention of the person he or she is handing it to. Football Canada allowed a fake lateral to nowhere to be a fake. All right? Kind of goofy, but they did. There's a reason why. This all becomes important, which I'll mention about the 70-second clock. At that point, anyone from any distance can cross. Once there's been a handoff, a fake, or a lateral, or a forward throw, anyone can go. Okay, so that's the defender's rusher blitzer. Okay?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So, let's say you get to a higher level and you're running a snap onto into the blitzer or rusher is lined up at 7 yards. You go, first calls a hut, everyone jumps, ball doesn't move, ball is snapped. All these rushers are now at 6 yards. Have they lost their right to rush?
Yeah, in fact, it's going to get worse than that. Not worse than that bad a way. It's not going to be called like it should, but it should be whistled dead because the play is. The proper call is going to be whistle it dead, automatic 5-yard penalty.
Because the blitzer is declared that they're blitzing, but now.
Yeah, now that only applies to a blitzer,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Now, so yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm jumping the gun a little bit. Blitzer, hand up. Okay, steps offside for any reason. The ball hasn't been snapped, and their hand was up, and they step over. Offside, blown dead, 5-yard penalty.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it going to be called that way? I'm not. The reason, folks, I'm not dissing my refs. I'm simply saying we have so many young refs. I'm just prepping you that they could be doing a great job, but that doesn't mean they're going to be really good on that. And that's something to chat. It was my understanding, ref, and you're going, I don't care. All you should really care about is consistency, where the ref called it the same way, and maybe at halftime they make a change, but as long as they're consistent. No, I know, and I know we're all good on that, but I'm just trying to prep you. We're going to have a bunch of young refs, and they're going to know a lot of things, but that doesn't mean they're going to know everything. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
Blitzer, steps offside while their hand is up. They take their hand down. They're not a blitzer anymore. But if they step offside, it should be blown dead immediately.
Okay.
A rusher steps, no problem, but they are not good to rush and cross the line of scrimmage unless they go back and clear. Now, in fact, I even don't think IFAF would allow them to go back and clear like you could in touch football. Yeah, so that's an interesting point. I would say they were not lined up properly at the snap. It doesn't matter what they do.
Okay.
That would be this little things I'm going to learn to ask about that as well. Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
good.
Okay, sorry, just to be clear, so if you were on two, and the guy, the rusher,
Blitzer or rusher, yes.
the blitzer goes, that should be drawn dead, still dead.
Blitzer, because their hand is up, they step across, they declare it as a blitzer. They cannot be within 7 yards. Oh, dead, offside.
And there's no way
No
that he
free play.
can go back and reset himself as,
If they step offside, if a rusher steps is inside 7 and the ball is snapped, I don't believe they can reset, but I may try and find out.
but the blitzer for sure can.
blitzer is going to be blown dead, and it's a penalty right away. We'll see how well it gets going. Isn't it great having knowledge? Knowledge is power. Hey, ref, I know you did something wrong. No, anyways, it's all been great, and it's been really good watching the interactions that are by and large going on there. The quarterback, this really doesn't come up very much. The quarterback has 7 seconds to throw the ball, basically. Quarterback takes the snap. No fakes, no laterals, no anything. You have 7 seconds to throw the ball. Why does this come up? Sometimes teams don't rush. And you may just be going, who do I throw to? Who do I throw to? Who do I throw to? 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3. You got 7 seconds to throw the ball. Okay? The moment there's a fake handoff, the moment there's anything that allows anyone on defense to cross the line of scrimmage, the 7-second clock is off. All right? You know you're going to get 5-man, no rush defense. Have somebody come around for a handoff. Fake. Anyone could come in now from any distance, but there's no clock. You know what? We get that a lot. I get a good chunk of 5-person defense with no rush. I knew this, but you know what? That's a good thing. I'm actually going to add that to the offense where we bring somebody through for a handoff. Because it's just this little thing. The quarterbacks get nervous. And it's hard to pull the trigger sometimes in that 5-man defense. Everyone's open and no one's open.
With blitzer coming, you still only have 7 seconds.
True.
That it rarely happens.
Blitzer chases you around for 7 seconds. You never made a handoff for fake. You only have 7 seconds. Right? 7 second rule. Can't jump. You know, you'll see moves. We talked about offensive moves yesterday, but you know, leaving the air and spinning. You know this is not spinning. One of the things you'll see, 1 foot stays on the ground, more like a basketball pivot. You know, so here. See how 1 foot stayed on the ground at all time. You know, that's not jumping in any way. They talk about changing the level. You're allowed to lower the level of your flags by dipping, tough action on hips and knees, but you're not allowed to raise the level of the flags by jumping. Okay? Not too many times it gets called, but it is a definite rule.
Can you touch the ground? Like, can your knees touch the ground?
No, it'll be called dead. There are no fumbles in flag football. All right, I should get a football for this. All right, here we go on the snap. Set hut. Okay. Where is the next play snap from? Does anyone know what the rule book says? How do they determine when a ball hits the ground where the next play is scrimmaged from? Any answers?
From the original line of scrimmage?
Why? You're right in this case. Why does it go to the original line of scrimmage here? What bigger concept is more than it just goes back to the line of scrimmage?
Well, it's a dead play, drop the ball.
True. All right, come on up here, please.
Sure.
Center, here we go. We're trying to get an overriding principle. You're there. You're my halfback. Set hut. Knock it to the ground. Where does the ball get scrimmaged now?
Up there.
Okay, why there?
Play was big.
Sorry, it would be better to stay here. It's not going to get scrimmaged down. I know we're getting settled. This is the next play scrimmage point. Why?
You would control this?
I had control of it. In the play you said where the center is going to go back to the line of scrimmage,
Right.
could we use the same wording?
No, because he didn't have control.
Who did have control?
It's the center.
The center. The last point of clear possession will determine where the next play is. All right, so you're exactly right, and I just wanted a clear concept of where was the last clear possession. In other words, I'm running with the ball. I have crossed the line of scrimmage or I haven't crossed the line, and I throw the ball 50 yards backwards. You know, tackle, that's where it's going. Not here. Throw it 50 yards backwards, where was the last clear possession? Okay? that can have an effect on safeties and things because, you know, if I'm at the 1 yard line and I throw it back into the end zone and they drop it, it's not a safety. Clear possession, right here, won the 1 yard line.
So high snap, goes over the quarterback's head, it's still back.
Yeah, again, they can go right through the end zone. That should be a safety. Nope. Last clear possession, where the center had it. Okay, so last clear possession. As always, no fumbles. It's not a fumble if you catch the ball before it hits the ground. In other words, somebody bobbles it and somebody slides in, not really what we want, people hitting the deck, but if you caught it before it hit the ground, that's an interception. All right, we don't really call them interceptions in Canada on a lateral, but technically, I think IFAF calls them all interceptions. Okay. All right.
What happens if somebody catches it, drops it, but then the other team picks it up before it hits the ground?
That would be an interception. Yeah. We don't really want people. It does. I've never seen somebody catch a fumble. In essence, I've seen it where it's up in the up high a whole lot. That's a different story, but not just on a straight drop. No one's that good. Okay, so last thing on the last page, the order of rights. This order of rights does not solve every collision, but it's the guide that a good ref follows as best they can. The number one order of right is no one can intentionally or recklessly contact another player. IFAF doesn't say recklessly. I love adding recklessly. I think recklessly should be added a lot more. You know what I mean? No intentional contact in hockey. And then somebody hit somebody hard. I wasn't trying, it wasn't intentional. Yeah, but it was so reckless, one should understand that was, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard. Intentional implies it, obviously an intent that is hard, so I just like adding recklessly, you know, to that. Now, this right is kind of the right that everyone else has to not be hit intentionally. It's not really written that well. You'll see the other one's the right of way. This right is the right of everyone else, in a way. So that's the overriding priority. All right, anyone running around hitting people, we'll call it intentionally, that's the number one thing where we do not want to have happen in flag football. I will tell you, IFAF is very strict at World Championships. I am telling you that me decelerating to a walk, decelerating quickly, and my last step is a walk, hitting you, flag, offense, intentional contact. That's the level. Where do you find these videos? NCAFA.ca, click on flag, look on the right side, IFAF World Championship videos. All right? You will see that called often. Number two, right of place. This is a key point to a degree. Right of place, established before the snap, can be established during a play if other players have reasonable time and space to avoid contact. You are running this way and you're about to get here and right of place? No. That's not right of place. You know, I jumped in front of your way. I got my feet. You know, in basketball, again, in basketball, there'd be that, how much, you would need 2 steps. Now in football, they might even judge it a little more because you're running full speed about when you established right of place. But you're 10 yards away and I'm standing here, right of place has been established. But this is where it gets a little messy because we've also talked before the snap. And you're going to see one of the next priorities is the right of receiver to run a pattern. And this is going to be the gray area that I'm talking about. Very quickly, we're going to get to some gray. This is not perfect. Remember the top one. Because one can also judge you in this thing where I jump in your area a little bit quick and you lower the shoulder, right? You aren't doing anything to avoid the contact. That may take priority in that collision, even though this person's somewhat at fault for jumping in your way too late. But as soon as you lower that shoulder, and I know this gets tough, I'm just protecting myself, but we're trying to avoid. So I know I'm leaping into all this gray. I just want to preempt that. It's good. They have some good stuff here. But I tell you, it's not perfect. Not by a long shot, but that's just the nature of sport at times. So, What this is trying to say is that when the defense lines up, they all have, if they hold that position, they have all established right of place. And that is bigger than this big receiver right I'm going to tell you in a moment. Every receiver, first of all, they're right there. They haven't moved. If you run into them, that's intentional contact. You know where they are. They haven't moved. You know where they are when the play started. That's intentional. It's also an infraction of right of place. So that's a penalty. Okay? By the way, you can't, this is not right of place. All right? You can't stick your arms out and say, I was hit that way. All right? That should be whistled again, however people will call it, but that should be an infraction before there's even a collision almost. That you can't do that as a defense. Right of way of blitzer we've chatted about. So there's a right of way that's above the other rights of way. Because the next one is the right of a receiver to run a pattern. The receiver cuts in front of the blitzer and throws them off. The right of way of the receiver is important, but not more important than the blitzer. Penalty on the receiver, not on the blitzer.
If a receiver cuts in front of a blitzer but doesn't impact.
And throws them off.
Okay.
If they cut quickly and they don't influence a potential gray area, correct?
Okay.
It gets worse than that. You're cutting very quickly in front, or let's say you're cutting and you stop your rush. The rush must be quick and continuous. It cannot be delayed. It must be quick and continuous. So you might be coming up and this person senses you coming and they stop. Normally you might have been called for obstruction or screening. But because I stopped, that's off. Once again, I'm not trying to, I know I'm accentuating the gray, I'm saying it gets a bit complex. But here's my rough guide. If I'm 7 yards away, if I'm a receipt coach, a referee, and you cut 3 yards or less quickly, I'm not worrying about it.
So if you cut, you're playing man, that guy follows. The man.
Once the defense gets in the way of their blitzer, before they get in the way of the receiver, that's not obstruction. That's your player screening you before, that's a fellow defender screening you. That's not, we're not going to throw a penalty on the defense for that one. So, yeah, again, it gets, I'm not going to say complicated, it gets intricate to keep all this stuff. Yep.
Because we're dealing with kids learning everything new. What's the best advice to give all of your offense as soon as a blitzer
Good.
raises their hand 2 seconds?
I'm going to finish with that. Very important. Good. Right of way of blitzer. Lost if blitzer doesn't blitz immediately, continuously, and quickly. Lost if blitzer changes direction. They have the right to go to the quarterback, where the quarterback caught the ball. Right of way of receiver. Before ball is thrown forward or before runner crosses the line of scrimmage. I'm doing a good job making myself think. This is a hard one here because you lateral. This person's running around. You want to bring defenders up to stop this person who could potentially run. There's still a throw option. You cannot be running forward and getting in the way of a receiver. But by the way, you can't run into people on purpose. Oh, I think I'm convincing myself I need 6 hours to train refs how to interpret. We need serious video. Right of way of defender after forward throw and pass is touched or run across the line of scrimmage. The ball's crossed the line of scrimmage. The ball's been thrown. The person's caught it. The right is all the defender's right of way to go make a flag. On offense, this point. It happens all the time. Ball is caught. You've caught it. You're trying to run this way. I'm a receiver running a deeper batter. Stand still. Maybe slide out. Do not block. Do not move. I'm not saying it's going to lead to something, but good refs are totally looking for screening by non-ball carrying offensive players. You can never go wrong with standing still. He can use the offensive pylons that are now standing. That is allowed because right of place has been established. Gray area, you take 4 steps and you stop. If I can call it because some defender's being influenced, I'm going to call high-level refs will call that screening. They're 15, 10 yards away, and you move 4 steps and stop. You've established right. They have more than enough time to see you and avoid you. But they can use them. So, this also goes to the ball carrier. It is the ball carrier's job to avoid the defense more than it's the defense's job to avoid the ball carrier, because they're trying to get a flag. The reason I say that is because you're running with the ball towards me. You're running fast. I cannot jump in your way in the last second. All right? Now, yes, I should be able to get here, and then you lower your shoulder. Yes, you can. You have to avoid me even more. But that doesn't mean we get to jump in your way at the last second. Yes, that's going to be great. I liken it to more of a basketball charge. You know, if I'm going to jump in your way, you have some time to not comfortably, but not last minute. But can I make? And half of it's showing that you're not trying to collide. That maybe there's slight, but you're kind of trying to show that you're not getting that collision. And offense players must get out of the way of defenders trying to flag the ball carrier. Offense players may establish right of place at any time during a play as long as they give defenders a reasonable amount of time and space to avoid hitting the offensive player. Ball carrier must try to avoid contacting the defenders. So that's tough, and I know I've probably got you more worried about how complex it is, but that's what you're trying to establish. Here's a gray area, and how I would call it, just as another example. I've established right of position as a defender, but I decide to back up 3 steps once the play is started. I've now lost my right of place as a defender. That was so clearly defined previously. Okay, now I'm a receiver coming out, and I run 10 yards without looking back at the quarterback, and I run through that defender. I'm going to be ready as a ref to call illegal contact on the offense. They saw the person. They thought they had a right to run through them. To me, that's intentional contact, and I'm going to call it on the offense. Yes, the defense wasn't right either. They could have avoided more, but that person aggressively went through. I'm always going to be judging what the defense is doing. Did the defense hunker down and lower the shoulder, not try to move out of the way? Or were they staring this way and watching the quarterback and the receiver ran into them? You know what I mean? They're not intentionally trying to hit the person. They're watching some, they saw this receiver coming. This person bowled them over. Okay, I'm standing here. Now it's the receiver running a little slant, and they've got their head turned to the quarterback. They didn't see this person. That's on defense. They've got to get out of their way. You know, if I have a tie there, I'm going to call it on the defense because they moved. They didn't have a right of position. And that receiver right away is important. Which led into a good question yesterday about pass interference. Tackle has an inherent acceptance of some contact. Flag football has less. That doesn't mean that perfect knockdowns have to be perfect. But you've already seen in a lot of games a little bit of bumping as you're coming in. That will be tolerated less in flag. There is a certain sentiment, though, that says, yeah, that's okay, that's just incidental contact. They make reference to it a bit, but there will be less tolerance. You will have to do it better. And if you watch IFAF World Championships, you will see that as well. All right, so more than enough there. I know it's a bit tough, but I just wanted to highlight that every one of my decisions are simply trying to navigate this right of way. And it's not easy.
So if the defender is behind the receiver and he makes an interception, while making that interception, he does kind of help the receiver.
While doing it or after he's caught it? He or she's caught it.
In the process of getting their hands on the ball.
Yeah, and that's going to be a tricky one. Sort of simultaneous. How hard are they running through that person's shoulder? Did the receiver lunge this way at the last moment? There's a bunch of things. That's going to always, pass interference will always be a challenge. I wish I could say, for me as a ref, what I would ask of myself or any other ref is, can you establish some sort of consistency on how you did it during the game? I do believe that my thing as a youth official would be trying to always promote safety. Because, you know, in a lot of sports, you let a certain amount go and then you just feel it escalating, especially, you know, in those games where they get a little more competitive. So you're trying to establish something, and I would err more on the side of safety. Classic one is DB here, someone runs a quick end and they just fly forward to sort of run at an intersection point. I was here, I have a right to this. Not really. That receiver has the right to run their pattern. You blew through it. Do you know what I mean? I was here first. Yeah, but you really upset their pattern. So it's not easy. It's not easy. And this thing, we're focusing on the not easy part, but that's how I'm going to judge it as a ref. What's safe? You know, I try to follow that. But I'm not there to micromanage a little bit of two people going for the ball, other than how it has safety concerns. Coming in hard, banging heads, then I want to push that, get that in. Any other rule questions? Yep.
The 7 second for the quarterback, so he goes past that 7 seconds. What's the call?
Should be blown dead immediately.
Blown dead, no.
I believe it goes back to the line of scrimmage too. You know,
So it's
I
a
love
loss
these
of
things.
down.
I believe so, yes. And it will, there's a good chance it's a 5-yard penalty.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. I wish I knew the answer and why it's good to do these things, because you realize, I thought I knew everything. I do not about the rule book.
Okay.
Anyways,
So
all right.
talk to the ref before the game to establish that, because is it 5 yards and a loss of down, or is it one? or
It's
the other?
definitely a loss of down.
Okay.
I believe it could be 5 yards as well.
Okay.
But good question. I'd love it if you emailed it to me and I'd tell you a good answer.
Sure.
And I just want to let you know that I'm not sure all the rest. You know, all these great things, you want to write up a question, a sheet, and then you realize you're writing the rule book. And so what the hell am I, you know, I want the 12 things that every ref should know. Well, it turns out the list is about 838, and it's called reading the rule book. You know, so I don't know. So I'd love you to, any questions that have come up that you're wondering about, I love finding those answers. So please email me, and I will get you the best answer.
And it's up to the ref's discretion. I mean, we're not going to be yelling at the refs like, hey, that was 7 seconds, that was 7 seconds.
I would
know,
hope
it's-
you wouldn't.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like that, if I was a coach that wanted to do that,
Yeah, it's,
ref, I really feel the last few times they've
Yeah.
taken more of this, could you please keep an eye on the clock? And that's all I would ever, that's what I try to, I can't say I'm perfect in that, but that's what I continue to, ref, I know I've asked you 4 times, I really feel I'm getting to 8 and 9, I really don't think it's doubt, I don't understand if it was close, I don't even think it's close. Thank you, please
Yeah.
watch, please listen to that, watch that, you know, that's my way to engage the referees on that. And at the end of the day, I know this isn't perfect. The other thing I ask for is consistency. If they at least hopefully went equally both ways, then at least I don't feel there's, I know it could be in a way unfair for one team or the other, but at least they're being consistent. Yeah. Is that okay?
yeah, thank
Any
you.
other?
Ball caps.
None. Soft
Even
brim.
the bucket hats, they can wear the
Soft brim, totally acceptable. Bucket is soft brim. Therefore it's allowed.
The cool Oakley sunglasses.
Now we're getting into grayer area.
Because last year, some refs are like no glasses, even if they're unless they're prescription.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they want.
So let's talk prescription. We had this talking yesterday. I feel refs will bend over backwards to allow prescription glasses until they really feel they're unsafe, as in they're just held together and there's sharp steel or metal, you know what I mean?
Right.
I feel they will bend over backwards to let somebody play with prescription glasses. When it comes to sunglasses, in general, I see them being allowed. As they're more that gold frame metal, I could see them saying no and wanting more of an athletic type, which I believe Oakley would come into where they're not metal, and
Yeah.
therefore I see them being allowed
Okay.
more in the plastic version. The more metallic they get, the less I see them being allowed. Other than prescription where they'll bend over backwards to let them be allowed. That's my prediction.
Is there a discretion they can't say no sunglasses, even if you have plastic ones that have no?
Plastic, I don't believe they have much discretion to say. Again, of course, we have to follow what the ref says, but in general, I don't see them any need. I haven't seen it. I have not seen kids wearing sunglasses, plastic, ever be denied wearing sunglasses.
Last year there was one ref, he was a very young kid, and I didn't give him a hard time. He
Yeah.
was just like, no glasses, that's the rule. I'm like, okay,
There
man.
you go.
So,
Yeah, the funny thing is the IFAF rulebook, they say all this stuff, no headgear, and then there's been a brouhaha, and even though it says it, I could see at the World Championships, they seriously allowed headgear, not hats, but a lot of people loved wearing sort of the, I'll say bandana-like, either a cap, like a, I'll call it, I guess, I don't know if they call them skull caps anymore, but a skull cap or a bandana-like thing, they clearly allowed those. But yeah, so even they didn't enforce it.
I've seen some people wear like, it's almost like a faux headband.
Yeah, they've got these, what do you call it? They, for rugby, I think they may be wearing rugby, but mostly in tackle, they'll wear a padded helmet, a padded hat. It's like an old boxing, a toned down boxing. Scrum hat, scrum cap, there you go, that's right. Nothing wrong with that, is it soft, softish, it doesn't stick out, no problem with that. The only thing there, the thing I'd be more, if that person's leading with the head and lowering your shoulders, that's flag guarding.
Wrist guards with plates on them for QBs. Is
Okay.
that possible?
Yep,
Yeah.
definitely.
You know, ones.
Yep. My problem there is if I felt it was a problem, are they flapping? Sometimes there's multiple pages. Are they flapping around a lot? Are they a distraction? Hopefully there's a Velcro that keeps it closed. Yeah, I should mention carrying the ball. All right, here I am carrying the ball. All right, and I'm running like this. As a ref, I am so ready to call flag guarding. Not every coach thinks I should call it that much. At the higher level, they run like this. Anything close is called flag guarding at a higher level. Canadian Nationals, provincials, they're calling it. Maybe it's hard for kids to carry the ball in one hand though, but as soon as you're this, I will call it even if the person hasn't put their hand in because they don't know how to put their hand in because they see the hand going back and forth. So I'd be warning, maybe I didn't call it the first time, I'm saying, listen, you run like that again, and they're even close, I'm calling flag guarding.
Only when they're near defender?
Yes, when the defender's near the ball carrier, yeah, when the ball carrier, that's right. So, I'm just so ready once I see people running, you know, I had one coach say, well, that's not right, they have to run unnatural. Exactly, you have to run unnaturally. You've got a lot of advantages in flag football on the offense, and the one disadvantage is you have to allow the person to have access to your flags. You must run unnaturally, all right? So ready for flag guarding. Here I'm running this way, flag guarding. Flag guarding. You're allowed to run with the ball out. If that defender's there, flag guarding. Not flag guarding, because you have complete access to the flag. All right, so leaning. This is a hard one as a ref. I'm trying to throw the ball this way, the rusher's coming this way. Do I do this as they're going for the flag, or do I do it as they've passed their access to the flag? That I find to be a tough one. Did they have access to the flag, or did this action take away? Because this is a classic one for quarterbacks, right? They go like that, and the ball's coming down, they're throwing arms down here, and now they're getting to flag. Okay?